History and examination of the nose and paranasal sinuses. Parts of the nose. The external nose includes the root of the nose, the bridge, dorsum, ala, and the tip. This is the lateral wall of the nose, which has three bony projections, namely the superior, middle, and the inferior turbinates. This is the nasal septum, which forms the medial wall of each nasal cavity. It is further divided into columellar septum, membranous septum, and the septum proper. The septum proper is formed by septal cartilage, perpendicular plate of ethmoid, and the vomer. Paranasal sinuses are the air-containing cavities situated within the bones of the skull. There are 4 in number on either side. The anterior group includes the maxillary, frontal, and anterior ethmoidal sinuses. The posterior group includes the posterior ethmoidal and the sphenoid sinuses. Basic history taking. It should include the onset of symptoms, the duration of symptoms, the progression, diurnal variations, postural variation, aggravating factors, relieving factors, and associated symptoms. Presenting complaints in nose and PNS. First is nasal discharge. Ask for the history of onset, the type of discharge, quantity. Was it foul smelling? Was it blood stained? The most common cause of unilateral foul smelling discharge is foreign body in children. Bilateral nasal discharge is seen in polyps, nasal allergy, DNS. Mucoid discharge is seen again in DNS, clear discharge in CSF rhinorrhea, watery discharge in allergic rhinitis, bloodstained discharge may be seen in malignancy, antrochoanal polyp, and rhinosporidiosis. Next is the history of nasal obstruction. Again, ask for history of onset, duration, whether it is unilateral or bilateral, whether there is diurnal variation, and any other associations. Unilateral nasal obstruction is seen in case of foreign bodies, hypertrophied inferior turbinate, DNS, AC polyp. Bilateral obstruction is seen in case of allergic rhinitis, vasomotor rhinitis, and ethmoidal polyposis. Other complaints are itching of the nose, which is seen in nasal allergy, disturbances of smell, in which case we have to elicit the type of disturbance, whether it is anosmia, which is complete loss of smell, parosmia, which is an altered sense of smell, cacosmia, a feeling of bad smell, hyposmia, a reduced sense of smell, hyperosmia, which is increased sensitivity to smell. Another common complaint is snoring, which occurs due to vibration of the soft palate as seen in adenoid hypertrophy, polyposis, hypertrophied inferior turbinate, or edematous mucous membrane. Another complaint is epistaxis or bleeding from the nasal cavity. The causes may be congenital, induced by trauma, inflammation, malignancy, or systemic causes. In case of headache, we ask for history of onset, duration, diurnal and postural variation, aggravating factors such as cold climate, loud sounds, light, and relieving factors such as medications. Headache may be seen in acute sinusitis. In case of maxillary sinusitis, the patient complains of infraorbital pain. In case of frontal sinusitis, there is supraorbital pain, which is periodic in nature. In ethmoid sinusitis, there is pain over the bridge of the nose and between the eyes. In sphenoid sinusitis, there is occipital or vertex pain. Other complaints are sneezing, falling of crust, which may be seen in atrophic rhinitis. Now we come to clinical examination of the nose. It will be discussed in the following sequence, that is patient positioning, external examination, anterior rhinoscopy, diagnostic nasal endoscopy, posterior rhinoscopy, functional tests, paranasal sinuses, and instruments. The head mirror is snugly fitted over the head, and we make sure that the opening of the mirror lies over the right eye. The bullseye lamp is placed behind the left shoulder of the patient. The bullseye lamp is switched on and light should be focused over the nose of the patient. This is the correct positioning of the legs of the patient and the examiner. We look at the root, bridge, dorsum, ala, and the columellar region and vestibule. There are two instruments that we can use for anterior rhinoscopy. One is the Tunicum speculum and the other is the Vienna speculum. To examine the right nasal cavity, we hold the Tunicum speculum in our left hand. We put our index finger like this. Using our middle and ring finger, we hold it like this and turn it this way. This is how a Tunicum speculum is held. To examine the left nasal cavity, we hold it in our right hand in the same manner. We hold it with our index finger and position our middle and ring fingers like this. To use the Vienna speculum, we press both the handles together and it opens up. This is how we use a Vienna speculum. This is a recording of diagnostic nasal endoscopy. There are three passes. In the first pass, we move the scope along the floor of the nasal cavity into the nasopharynx to obtain a general view of the septum, opening of the eustachian tube, walls of the nasopharynx, and the upper surface of the soft palate and uvula. In the second pass, the scope is passed medial to the middle turbinate to visualize the sphenoethmoidal recess, the superior meatus, and the openings of the sphenoid and the posterior ethmoidal cells. In the third pass, the scope is passed lateral to the middle turbinate to examine the middle meatus in detail. The middle turbinate may be lateralized for ease in passing of the scope. To perform posterior rhinoscopy, we need a tongue depressor and a posterior rhinoscopy mirror, which has to be held like a pen and has to go in this direction. The mirror has to be dipped in Savlon or heated to prevent fogging. These are the structures visualized on posterior rhinoscopy. From above downwards they are adenoid, the posterior ends of the superior, middle and the inferior turbinates, the pharyngeal opening of the eustachian tube, the posterior end of the nasal septum, and the uvula. Next, we examine the paranasal sinuses. They are deeply palpated one at a time to elicit tenderness, which indicates sinusitis of the respective paranasal sinus. Maxillary sinus is palpated over the canine fossa. Ethmoid sinus tenderness is elicited over the medial wall of the orbit, just posterior to the root of the nose. Frontal sinus tenderness is elicited over the floor of the frontal sinus above the medial canthus. This is how we elicit maxillary sinus tenderness, ethmoidal sinus tenderness, and frontal sinus tenderness. Then we perform the functional tests. We test the smell on each side using aromatic substances like lemon, vanilla, etc. Next is the cold spatula test. A cold tongue depressor is kept in front of the nostril and fogging that occurs on expiration is compared for both nostrils to detect nasal obstruction. Next is the cotton wool test. A thin wisp of cotton is placed in front of the nostrils and the inward and outward movement that occur on inspiration and expiration is compared on both sides. Now we'll take a look at the commonly used instruments. This is the Tunicum nasal speculum. It is a self-retaining nasal speculum held using the index finger of the non-dominant hand. The blades are closed by pressing between the ring and the middle fingers. It is used to perform anterior rhinoscopy to visualize nasal septum, the Till's area, lateral wall of the nose, and nasal cavity. It may be used to remove foreign bodies for antral wash, nasal packing, and surgical procedures inside the nose. Next is the St. Clair Thompson nasal speculum, which is similar to the Tudicum nasal speculum except that the blades are longer. It permits deeper visualization of the nasal cavity and its structures. The uses are in septoplasty, polypectomy, and deep foreign body removal. This is the Killian long-bladed nasal speculum. It is a self-retaining nasal speculum and is available in blades of different sizes. The distance between the blades can be adjusted and fixed with a screw. The uses are same as that of Studicum's nasal speculum. This is the St. Clair Thompson posterior rhinoscopy mirror. It has a bayonet shaped handle. The mirror is available in sizes 0 to 5 and should be of appropriate size. The throat is anesthetized using a lignocaine spray. The mirror surface is either heated or dipped in Savlon to prevent fogging during the procedure. It is a plain mirror and does not magnify the image. The tongue is depressed with the tongue depressor and the mirror is introduced inside like a pen with the mirror facing upwards. The patient is asked to breathe through the nose and the mirror is then introduced behind the soft palate without touching the posterior pharyngeal wall to reflect light towards the nasopharynx. It can be used to examine the postnasal space after adenoidectomy to look for remnants if any are left behind. This is the Tilly's dressing forceps. It is used for nasal packing, ear dressing, removal of foreign bodies from the nose. It has a box joint. This is a Mirocell nasal dressing pack. It is made up of a non-stick material that is compressed for easy insertion and swells up subsequently after saline injection into it. It is used for packing the nose following epistaxis and septal surgeries. It can be left in the nasal cavity for more than 48 hours, unlike a ribbon gauze. This is a nasal foreign body hook. It is used to remove nasal foreign bodies by accessing the posterior part of the foreign body. This is the Lux forceps used in Colville-Luck operation to remove mucosa, in submucosal resection to remove bone or cartilage, in polypectomy to grasp and avulse polyps, and to take biopsy from the nose or throat. This is the Bleksley wheel straight cupped forceps. It is used to remove the bulla ethmoidalis and the other ethmoidal air cells, polyps, and other nasal masses. All endoscopic forceps have a distal hinge and the blades open only at the tip of the instruments. This compromises the lever advantage and the strength of the instruments at the tip. It also limits the opening capacity of the instruments distally but makes it accessible at the narrow spaces of the nasal cavity. It has an eye at the upper jaw to permit proper visualization of tissues. This is the Lichwitz sinus trocar and cannula for endoscopy. It is used for antral puncture through the inferior meatal root and the canine fossa root. It allows aspiration for culture sensitivity and biopsy. It allows the passage of the endoscope to examine the contents of the antrum. This is the Bleksley wheel straight cupped forceps, and this is the Lux forceps. Now we shall discuss some of the common diseases of the nose.
Nasal septum. It may be developmental or traumatic in etiology. Clinical features: there is history of nasal obstruction, which is usually constant. Intermittent nasal obstruction suggests mucosal congestion. If there is significant improvement in nasal obstruction after application of topical nasal decongestants, it indicates the role of mucosal elements in nasal obstruction. If the obstruction occurs on lying sideways, it indicates hypertrophy terminates on the dependent side or nasal valve collapse on the opposite side. There may be history of headache due to sinusitis resulting from the improper drainage of sinuses in DNS or impingement of anterior ethmoidal nerve causing referred pain over the vertex. There may be an external nasal deformity. There may be hyposmia or anosmia in bilateral DNS. History of epistaxis when DNS is associated with spur or due to crusting of mucosa on the side of DNS. Examination. The deviation of the nasal septum may be observed on anterior rhinoscopy. Cold spatula test is performed. Normally, equal misting is seen on both sides as shown in the picture. In DNS, there is reduced misting on the affected side. Cotton wool test. It tests dynamic obstruction, that is during both inspiration and expiration. Cottle's test. Positive Cottle's test is improvement of the obstruction on pulling on the lateral nasolabial folds. A negative Cottle's test rules out nasal valve collapse. DNE, it will allow inspection of the anatomy in neutral position, and it also allows inspection of the elements that are not visible in anterior rhinoscopy. This can reveal pathologies such as adenoid hypertrophy, mucosal abnormalities, nasal polyps, or choanal pathology, which may be the other causes of nasal obstruction. The definitive treatment for symptomatic DNS is always surgical. We can perform a submucosal resection, septoplasty, or endoscopic septoplasty. Septal surgeries are usually postponed till after 17 years of age. However, conservative septal surgery may be performed in children as young as 6 when the deformed nasal skeleton is severe, as delaying can adversely affect nasal and facial growth. Hypertrophied inferior turbinate. The causes are as a compensatory mechanism to DNS on the opposite nasal cavity, in allergic rhinitis, in chronic sinusitis, in chronic use of decongestant sprays. There is history of nasal obstruction. The enlarged inferior turbinate may appear red and inflamed in chronic sinusitis or pale and purplish in allergic rhinitis. Examination of the nose is carried out before and 10 minutes after application of a topical vasoconstrictor. Reduction in size of the turbinate after vasoconstriction is an important factor in deciding the line of treatment. Investigations. A CT scan of the nose and paranasal sinuses is carried out when surgical line of treatment is being considered. Treatment. Medical line of treatment can be done in case of allergic rhinitis and chronic rhinitis. In allergic rhinitis, steroid sprays, antihistamines, and allergen avoidance is done. In case of chronic rhinitis, topical steroids, oral antihistamines, antibiotics, and saline application are the first line of treatment. Surgery is reserved for cases with significant symptomatology. Endoscopic sinus surgery or FES is carried out in case of underlying chronic sinusitis with or without corrective septal surgery. There are several other surgical procedures that are described, such as mucosal preservation surgeries, mucosal destructive reduction surgeries, and turbinate excision procedures. Coming to the next condition, that is allergic rhinitis. It is clinically defined as having 2 or more symptoms of anterior or posterior rhinorrhea, sneezing, nasal blockage, and or itching of the nose during 2 or more consecutive days for more than 1 hour on most days. It may be associated with other allergic manifestations such as bronchial asthma and ocular manifestations. Coming to the ocular signs of allergic rhinitis, there may be edema of the lids, congestion and cobblestone appearance of the conjunctiva, allergic shiners, that is blackish discoloration around the eyes. The nasal signs include allergic salute, that is a transverse crease seen on the dorsum of the nose due to constant rubbing on the nose due to discharge. The laryngeal signs are hoarseness of voice caused by edema of the vocal cords. Pharyngeal signs, there may be granular pharyngitis. The ear signs are retracted tympanic membrane and serous otitis media due to blockage of the eustachian tube. On anterior rhinoscopy, the mucosa may be pale or purplish. There may be associated HIT. The diagnostic tests for allergic rhinitis are skin prick test to identify the offending allergen, radio-allergosorbent test to measure the IgE levels in blood, which are usually very high in allergic rhinitis, nasal allergen challenge, which is a crude and outdated test. Treatment is mainly prevention of the allergen. Pharmacological treatment includes oral antihistamines, montelukast, steroid sprays, topical antihistamines, decongestant sprays, and systemic corticosteroids. Immunotherapy may be carried out. It is a method of inducing tolerance to the allergen by repeated exposure of the patient to the allergen usually but not always with a gradual increase in allergen dose, either subcutaneously or sublingually. Surgical treatment may be carried out in case of severe symptoms, that is, in reduction of the hypertrophy turbinate and debridement of the polypoid mucosa.
Next, we shall discuss sinonasal polyposis. Polyps are defined as non-neoplastic masses of edematous nasal or sinus mucosa. Nasal polyps are of two main types, that is ethmoidal polyps and antrochoanal polyps. Ethmoidal polyps are mostly seen in adults. They occur due to allergy. They are usually multiple in number and bilateral. They originate from the ethmoidal sinuses. The growth is mostly anterior and may present at the nares. They are usually small and grape-like masses. Recurrence after removal is common. The treatment is by polypectomy, endoscopic surgery, or ethmoidectomy. Coming to antrochoanal polyp, these are common in children and they occur following infection. These are usually solitary and unilateral. They originate from the maxillary sinus near the ostium. They grow backwards towards the choana and may hang down behind the soft palate. They are trilobed in shape, that is, they have an antral, nasal, and a choanal part. Recurrence is uncommon when removed completely. The treatment is again polypectomy and endoscopic removal. Ethmoidal polyp can present with headache, sneezing, and watery nasal discharge. AC polyp presents with unilateral or bilateral nasal obstruction depending upon the growth. There is thick and dull voice, that is hyponasality. The nasal discharge in AC polyp is usually mucoid. Diagnosis: a large polyp can be identified by anterior rhinoscopy. In contrast to a hyperplastic turbinate, a polyp can be made to move by touching with a probe. It is seen as multiple glistening greyish-white, smooth, pedunculated mass in both sides of the nasal cavity. It is insensitive to touch on probing, does not bleed on touch, and the probe can be passed all around the masses. Diagnostic nasal endoscopy: it is the preferred method of examination. It can diagnose even small polyps in the middle meatus. It gives superior assessment of the extent of the disease and anatomical abnormalities. Now we come to epistaxis or bleeding from the nasal cavity. Anterior epistaxis is when the bleeding occurs through the nares. Kieselbach plexus is the most common site of anterior bleeding. The vessels involved in the formation of the Kieselbach plexus are shown here. Posterior epistaxis is when the blood flows mainly back into the throat. Anterior epistaxis is more common, whereas posterior epistaxis is less common. Anterior epistaxis occurs in children and young adults, whereas posterior epistaxis occurs in the older population. Anterior epistaxis is usually due to mucosal dryness, whereas posterior is due to hypertensive and atherosclerotic diseases. Anterior epistaxis is usually less severe, whereas posterior epistaxis is more severe. Bleeding from the Little's area, that is the area supplied by the Kieselbach plexus, can be managed conservatively by pinching the nose with the thumb and the index finger for about 5 minutes. This compresses the vessels and stops the bleeding. Another mode of conservative management is the Trotter's method, where the patient is instructed to sit and lean forward slightly, pinch the nostrils, and breathe through the mouth. If bleeding is not controlled by these techniques, nasal packing has to be carried out. Anterior nasal packing is done using Merocel pack. In case of uncontrolled posterior epistaxis, posterior nasal packing is done as shown in the picture. A piece of gauze is rolled into a thumb-sized pack and 3 threads are tied to it. The pack is soaked in liquid paraffin. A rubber catheter is passed into the nose. When it reaches the oral cavity, it is brought out using forceps. The pack is tied to the end of the rubber catheter and brought out into the nose through the nasopharynx. The pack is placed at the posterior end of the septum. It is secured in place by tying it against the columella. The first picture demonstrates anterior nasal packing done using Merocel. The next picture demonstrates posterior nasal packing using the Rapid Rhino pack. It is an inflatable balloon coated with carboxymethyl cellulose. It is submerged in sterile water for 30 seconds and then inserted till the indicator is well past the nares. The balloon is then inflated with a 20 cc syringe. If epistaxis is still not controlled with conservative measures in nasal packing, surgical intervention is required. The picture demonstrates chemical cauterization of the bleeder with silver nitrate. electrocauterization under endoscopic visualization may be done using bipolar cautery.